It's been a while since I was by myself. The pain just never really goes away, does it? Fuck my damn ass, shit ass, motherfucking bitch ass, fuck ass, cunt ass life, you motherfucking bitch ass, shit, fuck cunt, bitch, fuck shit. I want a fucking hello, fuck shit, bitch. You know, sometimes I just really wish someone would end my life. I got you, G. Sick. Maintenance time. How bad is the audio quality? Who knows? Hey guys, today we're doing some much needed maintenance on the Civic. It's kind of a laundry list of things, and it's pretty much what I recommend for anyone who's got a project car with over 200,000 miles. The only thing that I am not covering today is a timing belt, because I know that this one has been done within the last 60,000 miles. But if I didn't know that, I would have definitely done the timing belt by now. So here's what we got. We're doing an oil change. This thing burns oil, which I did not know when I first bought it, but I'm also not surprised. Instead of running 5W20 like Honda recommends in these engines, I'm going to switch to 10W30 and see if that helps with any of my consumption issues, because I am not about to do piston rings on this car. Oil filter to go with it, as always. Wix is the brand I prefer. I'm doing a transmission fluid exchange. This is a manual. Honda does this wonderful thing with almost all of the fluids in their cars, where they recommend only using their specific fluid. It's really annoying. They have their own transmission fluid, they have their own manual transmission fluid, they have their own differential fluid, they have all this stuff that's hard to find unless you buy it right from them, and it's expensive. So I did some digging on the forums of people who own this car with this transmission, and they were all just like, yeah, I just use 7590 and it actually works better, at least when the car gets up in mileage. And I was like, okay. We'll hit them with that Lucas full synthetic and see how we feel. I'm doing spark plugs just because they're really simple on this car and they probably need to be done. Lastly, I'm doing some fuel system cleaner along with a new fuel pump assembly. Now, this is not necessarily something you have to do at 200,000 miles, but my car is struggling to accelerate, and that's not something I really want. And the filter is included in the assembly, so it wouldn't make much sense to rip it all out and just change the filter, so I'm just doing the whole thing. Honda usually makes pretty good fuel pumps that last usually the life of the car, but if you have a series of owners that like to run their tank down to the absolute last drop, that will shorten the lifespan, and I believe that is what happened with this car. With all that being said, I'm gonna start on the spark plugs. Pretty self-explanatory. You can watch our last video on the Celica if you want to know how to change spark plugs. One thing that's good about changing your spark plugs is that you can see if your spark plug seals are leaking. If there's oil on any of these coils or any of the spark plugs that you pull out, chances are you have an internal oil leak that you can't see, but it's not that hard to fix. You just take your valve cover off, replace those little circular seals that go around where the spark plug sits, and you prevent some oil consumption. You can see that these are pretty nasty. The electrodes on them are a bit short, and everything is just kinda chalky, which is a no-go for me, sir. Good thing we're replacing these. One good thing to always pick up when you're doing an oil change on one of these cars is some brake cleaner. The oil filter is located directly below the intake manifold, so when you unscrew it and whatever oil is left in there dribbles out, it goes all down the backside of your block, down your oil pan, and then drips off. And it's not that easy to reach with a rag because of the exhaust and the axle. So, do yourself a favor, grab some of this stuff, make it shiny clean, and that way you know that if you have drips on your driveway, it's not residual. Everything down below is done for the oil change, and so now I'm just going to put in 3.7 quarts of my 10W30 high mileage full synthetic O'Reilly's brand oil. Now we move on to the transmission fluid change. Okay, so in terms of the manual transmission fluid exchange, the bottom plug is the drain plug, and the top plug is the fill plug. Now, a lot of times these services have not been done frequently at all, and so sometimes getting these plugs out can be a pain, if not impossible. So, always start by removing your fill plug, the top one, first, to make sure that you're going to be able to fill this bitch back up after you drain it. Okay, that top plug is a 17 millimeter. You're going to want to use a short socket with a long ratchet if you have one. That guy might be tight. Here I go. That wasn't that bad. My fill plug is now loose. That fluid looks and smells like 7590 or 8090. Chances are the previous owner who got this serviced couldn't find Honda manual transmission fluid either. So now the drain plug is a 3/8 square. So you just use that same ratchet you had your 17mm socket on, take the socket off, that little square that's on that bitch should fit this thing. Another reason you want to take the fill plug off first is because when you crack the drain plug, it'll drain a lot faster if the fill plug is off. Damn, it's a lot. Fuck! This shit tried to shoot me in the head, and now it's all over the floor. Alright guys, the way you're going to fill manual transmissions like this that have a fill plug on the side, usually in the same section as the manual transmission fluid or gear oil or whatever, they'll have these little pumps that screw on, have a straw that goes to the bottom, and have this tube that comes off the top that allow you to pump the fluid up into the transmission. The best way to tell if your manual transmission is full to specification is to just put fluid in until fluid dribbles out the fill hole. That's when you know that you have the perfect amount of fluid in there. That's also why you need to make sure that your car is level when you do this. If you just have the front lifted up, because the fill plug is at the back of the transmission, chances are it'll dribble out sooner than it's supposed to, and you might not actually have enough fluid in there. So make sure that your car is as close to level as possible. So I got everything buttoned up down here. When this starts to dribble, if you're unsure that that is the dribble that you're supposed to be dribbling, another thing you can do is get your pinky up in there and then stick it in the hole and angle it down a little bit. And if it comes out covered in fresh gear oil, that's another good way to know if it is full. Hey, what's up? We're doing our fuel pump now. Step 1. Ah! Yeah, that's all. Here's our coffee mess. Now, before you ask, no, I did not disconnect my battery or my fuel pump relay. I've done a couple different fuel pumps and never had to do that. I just work here, dude. All right, so you got 4 Phillips screws. I'm gonna take those out. That's for your cover. Another good thing to have on hand for this is a box of rags, just because there's a lot of fuel involved in this. Ew. Okay, I'm gonna disconnect this plug. Okay, that's your plug there. It's just a squeeze and pull. I'm doing that so I can get this out of the way so y'all can kind of see. Down in here you got this ring. It's got a bunch of notches on it. Honda makes a special tool to deal with that, but I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. Step 2, here's your plug. Here's your pinch fitting. You squeeze this and you pull this off. It's gonna be under pressure. Just use a rag and yank on that fucker. Make sure you don't break it, obviously, but yeah, go yanking on her and she'll spit some fuel, but if you got a rag, you'll be fine. I'm gonna use some loose fitting vice grips to hold this clamp closed so that I can just focus on squirming this line off. Here it comes. And squirt. Yep, just a little bit of fuel. Not too bad. And now I can work on getting this ring off, which I will show you how I'm going to do that. I'm gonna take a big old, long, flathead screwdriver, put it against one of the ridges, then just tap. You can use a hammer or your fist. And you can see that I have successfully loosened it. You don't need no fucking special tool for this garbage. Just don't hammer so hard that you snap it like an idiot. Come on. Okay, that's off. Now we're just going to pull the entire assembly out, but it is angled. There's also a seal around it that will make it harder to pull out if you don't pull it with the contraption. But try and keep your seal intact because some of the new pumps don't actually come with one. You have to angle it to get it out. Just like that. Now, if you're trying to retain any part of your pump, be very careful when you do this, because this little floater here, that's your level sensor. You don't want to lose that. Also make sure that you get this out of the car as fast as possible, because if you drip it on this carpet, your car is going to smell like fuel for a very long time. So now I am just going to unbox my new one and put it in. One nice thing about the design of this fuel tank setup is that it's very hard to get any kind of contaminants in your actual fuel tank because of the way that it goes down and then comes back up and plateaus. Yeah, look at that. That is so easy to avoid getting sediment in your tank. It's also really easy to contain any fuel spillage when you pull it out. I'm a big fan of this. All right, here I go with my new one. It came with a new seal, a new retaining ring, that big thing I used a screwdriver on, and everything else looks to be basically the same. So I just need to put it in very carefully. Here I go. Now, before you set your pump all the way down, try to pull the seal off and seat it first. Otherwise, there's a possibility that you could pinch it or rip it on the way down. So yeah, once you get it seated, then you push your pump into place. Now, there will be vacuum on this pushing it back. Like if I let go of this, it's coming back up. So do yourself a favor and have that ring on hand like I do, except I don't because I didn't open it like an idiot. Get the ring as tight as you can with your hands and then apply the same logic with the screwdriver. I don't think there's any torque spec on this. If there was, I'd be surprised if anybody ever followed it. One thing I do want to point out is that my new fuel pump assembly did not come with this little clip that holds the sending line into place. So I'm gonna have to swap that over. Using a small screwdriver, I am going to pry up on these clips, being very careful not to break them, slide them over, and then put it onto the new one. Got it. Got my little clip. I'm gonna slide it over, and then put my pressure line on, and clip it into place. Make sure she ain't going anywhere. Then I will take my plug it in, but I will refrain from covering up the fuel pump yet because I need to A, make sure it works and runs, and B, make sure it doesn't leak. So let's try it. A good way to tell if it's working correctly is to just turn your ignition on and hear if it makes a bunch of noise. Also, you're gonna need to do that a couple times because you've released all the pressure from the line. So you need to cycle your ignition probably 3 times. On, wait for the fuel pump to shut off, turn the car off. I can hear it. There's that. Here we go. Let's watch for leaks. I don't see any. I think we're good. All right, just button her up. And get your sheet back in there. Sheeb. All better. All right, and the final piece of this puzzle, you guys, is very simple. Just some high mileage fuel system cleaner to make sure my injectors aren't gummed up or anything like that. I'm sure most of you have done this before. Oh, I just shot it all over myself. I'm supposed to have a seal on it. What the? Bro, I'm literally covered. There you go. Crank it up. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope that you guys learned something. I hope that at least some of this procedure that I used applies to you if you have recently acquired a Project Civic around this mileage. Sayonara.